Hi friends, Andrea here. This is going to be just a video on how to make paper tissue flowers, and what you'll need to make these is some kind of gift wrapping or gift tissue. This just happens to be some that I got at I think at the Dollar Tree, and you can even use recycled gift tissue if you have it, tissue paper. And it doesn't really matter what size. It's really just about how big you want your tissue to be, or your flower to be. And then I also have some ribbon. You could, instead of using ribbon, you could use a piece of wire, like some floral wire, or you could use a piece of twine or yarn, or even maybe a pipe cleaner if you wanted to be able to wrap it around something, or give it a little bit of visual interest, like doing a little flower center with some pipe cleaners. But this is just what I have that I wanted to use up. So this is just a really narrow ribbon in a off-white color. And then I have some scissors. I have a really kind of heavy-duty pair of scissors, and then a smaller detail scissors, and I'm not sure if I'm going to need the smaller ones. So I'm not actually going to get into this package. I just wanted to show you. I have an open package of tissue that I'm going to use instead of opening this one up, but I wanted to show that. And I've got a few different sizes and colors, and it's kind of all a jumble here. So I've got several different colors. I've got some yellow, I've got some pastel green, pastel yellow, a little bit of kind of teal blue, and some lavender. And then I have some white, a couple of white sheets here. If you only have white, one tip I have is you can color the tissue if you wanted to, just using a Sharpie. And it doesn't have to be completely covered, but you could just kind of go over it with a Sharpie, making broad strokes. And it does change the color, but it's going to be more like a pastel color. And then I also have a few sheets that are kind of already broken down into squares. So you can kind of see I've got a few different colors in here. It's mostly pink and white squares. But depending on how big your squares are, if you use your whole sheet, you would end up with a really large flower. And if you used, half or 3/4 or something like that, you'd end up with a really small flower. And then if I fold this all up and finish my flower, it's going to be about that size, about the size of my hand at the end. So kind of when you're figuring out what size you want to make, think about how big it would be when you fold it into quarters, because that's about what size it's going to turn out to be, approximately. So I am going to just go ahead and put aside the white, and I think I'm going to use my purple, this lavender color, and maybe one sheet of my yellow, and I'm going to put the rest of this back. And this one I think I'm going to give as a gift, so I'm probably going to try to keep it a little small, on the smaller side. So I'm going to start out with my yellow, or pastel yellow here. And this is just a full sheet. It's hard to even fit it on the screen here. What I'm going to do to start out is I need to break this down into smaller pieces. So I'm going to fold it in half. And it doesn't matter which direction, because I am going to fold this into quarters here. So I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm not worried about making it perfect. And then I'm going to fold it in half again. And it is a long rectangle, so it's going to be imperfect dimensions, and that's okay. Perfect dimensions are not what happen in nature. Flowers are imperfectly shaped. So that's good. I think I'm going to just leave that And then I'm gonna go ahead and cut this right where I folded it. And I'm gonna try and keep my lines straight here. I'm not being like overly precise, but I don't want to have a bunch of jagged edges. So that's one, and then I'm going to go back to this other side where these two folds are, and I'm going to cut it so I end up with 4 sheets that are all about the same size, approximately. Okay, there's one, and then I'm going to do the second one here. And once I have this kind of cut down into my 4 squares, then I'm going to be able to cut down my purple sheet. And since I have 4 of these, it's going to make this is going to be the yellow in the center of my flower. And because I don't want the yellow to be as the same length, I guess, as my flower petals, I should say, I'm going to just take out 2 sheets. Put the other 2 sheets aside. I'll use them for another flower. And I'm going to fold this over again in half. Okay, and then I'm going to fold this. I'm just going to leave this like that. And what I'll do before I begin is I'll probably cut it down this side here, and then I'm going to fold it up and use it maybe like that, about that size. So I'm not going to show you the cutting and the folding of that because it's just going to be more of the same, but just to know that this is going to be about 1/4 of the size of my final sheet for my purple. So I've got, I pulled out 3 sheets here, and I think I'm going to start out with 2 sheets. So I'm going to put those 2 again. I have 2 sheets here, and I'm going to take these 2 sheets and the exact same steps as my yellow. I'm going to find the end. Looks like this is kind of folded over here. So I'm going to find the end. I am going to fold it in half, and bear with me, my desk is getting a little messy. And I'm going to try and fold this in half and then fold it in half again and cut it just like we did with the other piece. And if it's not perfect, it is okay, but we want to get it to be pretty even. So, got that. And you'll sometimes end up with little wrinkles and stuff, and that's okay. Flowers, petals do have wrinkles, and if it really bothers you, you can iron it, but I think that's kind of getting extreme for what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And this is 2 sheets of the lavender together. The yellow, I just did a single sheet, so it's going to result in a less dense number of sheets of tissue paper, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up with my second one, and then I will be able to begin creating my flower. And I am doing this in real time. I just want you to see how quick it is. And since I am explaining it and taking the time to go slow so you can kind of see my method, it is taking just a little bit longer than it would normally take me. But so I've got my flowers here, or my sheets. And oh, I guess I should cut this one up too. See how easy that is? And then I'm going to do these other 2 here. If I can get that center piece, it's kind of hard to find. But the way that this turns out, is by some creative cutting and some layering. And you can really get some stunning pieces depending on how many flowers you make, different colors, different color combinations you make, whether or not you create center parts for your flowers. Okay. And how many folds you do. That's the other important piece. So I'm going to center this in the middle of my purple here as closely as I can. And I want to try and keep all my yellows together as best as I can. It's kind of hard because it's slippery, but I'm going to try my very best to keep them all in alignment. And it's getting a little squirrely here on me, so I think that's close. So now I've got all my loose edges here. I'm going to start folding my loose edges, and I want to try and encompass my center flower piece into this fold. So I'm going to fold about 1/2 inch down, and I'm just going to keep going with that, and I'm folding it accordion style. So I'm going to move that aside just real quick and show you. I'm folding it down in the opposite direction, and then I'm going to fold it here. And it might sometimes be easier for you to start folding the purple for your main petal color and then come back and do your center color. And if that's easier for you, go ahead and do it that way. But the idea is just going to keep folding it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, like I said. You can just do the best that you're able to. Now, the better flowers are going to be with the most maybe layers of color that sort of blend together out to in. So like darker outer colors and then a lighter inner color maybe, just like in nature. And then maybe even multiple sheets of paper. So in this case, I just used 2 sheets, but because I cut it in half again, I ended up with 2 times 4. So I think it's like 8 sheets thick at that point. And then I'm layering it by folding it over into these little accordion fan. So I've got my final little fold here, and I'm done with this part of it. So that's what it should look like. So I'm just going to do the same step with my yellow. It's going to be a little bit more challenging because it's not as compact, I guess. But I do want to make sure I get the same width, I guess. So I'm just going to kind of hold it up against my other one and fold with that piece as my guide. All right. And again, not perfect. It's just, I'm doing kind of a little rough job here. So now I've got my yellow piece, and for my yellow, I really want this to sit so that the rough edges are sticking up. And same with my purple accordion. So I'm going to find my center of my flower here. Let's see here. And I'm going to say that's the center. That looks like about the center here. And I'm going to put that all together. So I just put that yellow layer on the inside. And it's about in the middle, pretty even. So I'm just kind of making sure I scoot it over. All right, so here's where it gets interesting. Now, if I wanted to leave this the way it is, I could just put something in the center, a ribbon in the center, and then tie it off, and then I start fluffing up these layers. But I don't want to just leave it like that. I want to make something kind of fun on the edges of this petal. So what I'm going to do is take my sharp scissors, and I think I'm going to do kind of like a dahlia shape petal here, if I can get my scissors to cooperate. And it might be easier for you to cut a single layer and then kind of stack them together on top of each other. So I've kind of done a pointy edge here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Moving that out of the way. So let's do this side. And it is a little thick. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little thick and it's a little tough to get that. So if you have an X-Acto knife or a rotary cutter or something else that works, you can use that too. And I'm gonna just take my little piece out of the center here and do the same for this one. And just do those little spikes, those little pointy pieces. And like I said, if you find that this is really too tough, you can unfold it and try with less layers. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and, now I've lost where I had that. That's okay, I'll just open it up again, unfold my accordion. And I think it was here. So that looks close. So I'm gonna say that that's what that's what it was. And I do need to just move it down a little bit. It's not quite in the center, so I'm just gonna scoot it until it's right in the center there. So if I fold it in half, I'll easily be able to see if that's centered, and that looks pretty good to me. That's pretty close. So here's the fun part, in my opinion, it's the fluffing part. So I'm just going to cut off a little piece of ribbon and wrap it around this flower here. I guess I'll leave myself some length so I can tie it to something. And I'm going to put this on so that I can tie it off on the back. And you don't have to crunch it down or anything like that. I'm just going to go ahead and tie it in a knot. And then I can go ahead and tie this onto something like a wreath or whatever. So, okay, I have my little flower here. This is where it gets a little bit fiddly for some people, and it can be challenging. So I always start with the back, and I open it up, and I start with just a single sheet. You can pull from the edge, and you might have to kind of separate them out gently separate it out and pull back and gently pull it down all the way kind of down to the base here. And it might get a little scrunched, and that's okay. That's okay. So I've got one pulled up. The more layers you have, the fluffier of a flower you have. So I'm going to pull my second layer, and I am being gentle. If I tear it, that's okay, but I'm trying to not tear it. So that's what it's giving me now. I'm going to do my second layer. And that's why I had so many layers on this flower, because I knew that I wanted it to be a really nice, fluffy flower. And I am pulling towards the back. And there's a reason for that. I'm going to have a lot of volume on this flower. That was my intention. And I still have to do the center petals. So when I do those, I want to be able to just open them up without having all this other volume in the front. and getting in my way. Okay, I'm just going to do one side so you can see, and then I'll do the other side off camera and show you what the finish looks like. And it's starting to get a little tougher down here at the bottom. So the fun story behind this is that I've always known how to make these flowers. I must have learned in school somewhere, but there was a competition at my workplace, and I work at a company that has a phone call center, and that's I'm on the phone all day for my job. So the challenge or the competition was to make a headset or a headdress or something like that out of some materials that were provided, and the materials that was provided included tissue paper and included some I think it was pipe cleaners, now I think about it. And so I just made, I think, 5 or 6 different colored flowers and attached them to my headset. And it was so beautiful. It looked like, it just looked like a big, beautiful floral headpiece. And I got a lot of compliments on it. And then I just wore it for a really long time around the office. Kind of was pretty noticeable and memorable. And eventually it kind of got annoying for me to wear it while I was on calls. So I broke it into individual flowers and started giving them away to people to put onto their desk. And even though it was just a single little tissue flower, it really brightened up the workplace, just because that color and the fun of it just being really crafty and bright. It was just super cute. Alright, so I've got almost all my petals fluffed up here for the center. And once I have the second half of my flower done, you're really going to be able to see how pretty this looks. With all of the different layers, it really is nice. If I had used a lot of different colors here, this could really be show-stopping. I mean, this could be a really eye-catching flower if you wanted it to. And it's just so low cost. It just takes a little bit of time to create these flowers. So, all right, that's one side. And now that I've got that kind of done, I'm going to flip my other pieces back to the front and start fluffing this up towards the front. And I'm being gentle as I fluff it. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep on fluffing that. And you might have to kind of turn it in a different direction than it was originally turned, but that is fine. So that's just half of my flower, and I need to fluff up my second half, the other half of my flower, and then I'll have a really nice, beautiful piece. So I'm going to be right back with the other half, and then I'll show you the completed piece. And it takes a little bit of fluffing to get it to look perfect, but I think it looks nice the way it is. You could be really fun with this and use some black and some yellow or orange and do a sunflower. If you did a really bright pink and some yellow, you could make like a dahlia. So it can be really pretty. And if you didn't want to make a pointy edged flower, you could do round, curved. You could make really wide folds, accordion folds, and get something that is a little bit of a chunkier petal. It can be really interesting. So I'm going to stop here and I'll pause it and I'll come back with the finished flower. Okay, so I have my finished flower, and it could use a little bit more playing around with to get it exactly the way I wanted it to look, but you can get the gist. So here's the finished flower, and it has all these beautiful layers here. I think if you added more colors, you could really get something spectacular, pretty spectacular. But I just love the way that these flowers look. They really brighten up a party or brighten up a room, maybe a baby's room, a nursery, or a child's room. You can throw a few of these up into the corner of the room, or hang them in a little bunch of flowers up by the bed or by the window. Another thing that you could do that I think looks really cute is just attach a few of them to a ribbon, and then you end up with kind of like a little bunting banner type of dealie with some flowers, different colors. You could do it so that it coordinates with the child's room or colors. This is also cute for weddings. I've done this for baby showers before in white, just because that was what the color the person who I was doing the party for wanted. But you can see that there's a lot that you could do. You could get really creative with this. And with that center piece, because I use those that other color, it really makes it look a little bit more realistic. And so this is what the back ends up looking like. And I could definitely kind of keep fluffing it and pulling it and playing with it, all the different layers, until I'm happy with the way it looks. But you can kind of see where that tied off part is, and then you could attach it to, if you had something going on, like I said, a bed frame, or maybe like the window. If you put it around the window up by the rod, the window rod, curtain rod. Gosh, can't talk. And you could also attach it to some kind of a wreath form and have a bunch of them. Put them up there. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do, but these look really fun and festive. This would be super cute for spring kind of decor to brighten up your house. And I think it looks really nice with the different colors here. I would definitely want to do a couple more, just because I think just a single flower is a little boring and plain. But I actually do have some of these decorating my craft room right now. I have one that is attached to my lamp, and I have another one that's just right above my sewing station. I'll have to show you that sometime, but I just love the way it feels. It's nice and soft. It's very springy, and the more I play with it and kind of fluff it up, the I think more natural and fun it looks. So if you wanted to do something different in the center instead of using tissue paper, you could use more ribbon. You could use some other kinds of materials in the center. You could actually get some of those paper flowers. I'm trying to think what they're called, but they're like for wedding decor. You could use some of those. I mean, you could use all kinds of things in the center here. I think another colored ribbon or piece of ribbon would be fun to kind of have dangling out. And then another thing you could do is you could make like a little swirl with a pipe cleaner and then just attach that into the center. Or if you had some other kind of decorative wire that you were playing around with. So anywho, I wanted to share how I made this with you guys and let you guys experiment with that technique. It's a very simple technique, and this is, I mean, the sheets of tissue paper that I got as $1 for all of those sheets, and I ended up using 3 sheets of tissue paper, 2 of the lavender, 1 of the yellow to make this. So it cost me probably, I don't know if that thing has 35 sheets, it cost me probably, I don't know, a couple of cents to make one of these. It just takes a little bit of time to fluff it out and get it perfect. If you have a group of people making these for a party decor or wedding decor, then it goes pretty quickly. I know that my mom and I made, I think, a dozen of them for a party. And then when we were done with them, we just, unfluffed them. I think we had pipe cleaners on there, so we just unwrapped the pipe cleaners. We unfluffed them. We folded them back up into an accordion, and we stored them again when we were done. So we didn't have to destroy them. We just put them away for future use. So they could be reusable if you were careful. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you are enjoying my content, definitely leave a like or subscribe. And if you don't want to miss out on other videos, make sure you hit that bell so that way you'll be notified when I post new videos. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!